This is one of my favorite things. Friday noon and sometimes even a strange catastrophe might be positive. Yeah. What I'm looking the whole week for, very much forward, is you said already you are also in the healthy and safety industry, and you are one of the trainers there. What do you think about all these home offices mushrooming around alongside Corona?
Yeah, I'm actually not so fussed about the safety aspects of it because most of the time people do make their homes safe for themselves to live in, with the exceptional housework here and there when you have ladders and people going on chairs and changing bulbs. But I think the most dangerous thing in this context really is the psychological impact of being at home 24/7, very often not in a comfortable environment, possibly not being in a quiet environment. And I believe for a lot of people, this is difficult. I think we need to understand that in this time of Corona, let's not underestimate the fact that we're in a crisis. So people are unstable, people are under stress, and trying to put new technologies in, trying to have new ways of working in, that creates an extra stress and an extra level of expectation. So there is a danger of mental health deeply involved in this issue. So this is that's been keeping me more awake than the fact that people might trip over their extension cords.
which is already very dangerous, of course. Yeah,
Indeed.
it's just both of us. We did a lot of trainings in the past years, of course, and we love to do it. Are you already missing these kind of trainings?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there are some really interesting learning out of it. I must say, um, by having to now change the mode of delivering a lot of our trainings and shifting them from a physical sphere into a virtual sphere. My perception is that a lot of things are actually working quite well, which I didn't expect to work that well. So I was apprehensive, being a child of the 80s and growing up in the 80s and 90s and still being a very much traditionally framed and not so much a digital native as such. But I was surprised how much is actually working quite well. But the longer you work with these tools and the more extensive you start using them, you also see the limitations. And definitely where we do see limitations are in the whole element of nonverbal communication, of course. It's especially when you're touching on subject matters which are close to the heart, where it needs people to open up. And this is very close to what we
Yeah.
often do on inspirational work. This is where it becomes difficult just to operate on on the visual screen and on the computer sound. Yeah, these
Where
are
you where you even might not see the other because of any technical problem we always have to face. Yeah, Mr.
absolutely. Yeah.
So talking about distance learning, of course, yeah, some experts are forecasting that this will be the future of learning. As I listened carefully to you, this sounds not exactly your opinion to be, yeah?
Well, what I do believe that there are actually two phenomena happening at this given stage. The one thing we're seeing is that due to digitalization and globalization, sort of the life cycle of information is becoming shorter and shorter, which means we need to uh, dramatically improve just the amount of what we learn.
Yeah.
So there's a ramp up of learning that we need to do, an acceleration of learning that we need to do. And, even if we were to stick to a very conservative classroom setting, we wouldn't be able to deal with that requirement of adaptation and learning just by going through the classroom. So, with the curve going up of the need of training hours, then of course, in order to be able to scale it up, these digital and new ways of learning will emerge. At the same time, as we've just discussed, we will see that there are elements that we can reduce, that there are formats which are well suitable for a virtual environment. And these will substitute the previous classroom. But I do believe that there will be something like a foundation element, sort of like a base, which a platform sort of
Okay.
classroom training, which will not go away. And these will be trainings, I believe, for all matters which are very close to subjects of mindset, of trust, building rapport, laying foundation for collaboration. But when we look in the field of just skill application, then I believe we'll be seeing more and more of that moving into the virtual space.
Yeah, okay, but as we know, okay, C-level trainings are of course not only telling people about some new developments and some new technologies. We are always asked to deal with any kind of behavior, any kind of communication skills and stuff. So of course, this is a difficult thing. Yeah. What is following your experience? What are good tools you can use for this kind of mixture and talking to people, influencing people these days?
Hmm. Hmm. But I think one of the what's really quite interesting is if I don't believe that there's the one particular solution. I think actually the magic lies in the hybrid of these various approaches. So it's the combination of different elements you can use already now. In the past, when we had been shifting from a one-off training in a classroom to the approach of a learning journey. So the idea of having to revisit again and again, having touch points with the audience. And for that, we used to have webinars and then face to face, and then again maybe coaching telephony. So there was a clear before, there was a highlight, which was the face to face workshop, and then there was an after. Now the design will become different, and I believe that means, for instance, that the online sessions will improve in the quality of what we can do online. A typical example is, the creativity that we are able to put in with tools such as Concept Board or Miro or Microsoft Whiteboard. These are all elements where we can start developing creativity. Then we can use fun element, gamification elements. We can use metering and polling and stuff like that, using Mentimeter and Kahoot and tools like that. So these elements are sort of pumping up the virtual space, but also once we go into a face-to-face training, it's no longer a classroom frontal PowerPoint talking to the audience. It's much more the idea of getting people to work, interacting with each other, maybe using technology in order to go through certain experiences. So this idea of bringing various formats together and thereby creating something unique, I believe that's really what we're seeing at the moment as a big trend.
So more individualization, I guess. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
You touched the point of gamification, which is one of my favorite hobbies since quite a while. And of course, yeah. Do you have a good example for that in your mind when you're talking about gamification as an element of these kind of mixture of distance learning?
Well, there are two sides of a spectrum there. If you look at the gamification elements, you can have a full submergence, and I've worked with a company where we literally had something which is very similar to a computer game environment, which was a graphic environment. It was actually representing a pharmacy, and you could pick products from a shelf in the pharmacy, and you'd have to answer questions and click on multiple choice and stuff like that. So it was very much like a computer game, so gamified in that sense. On the other side of the spectrum, of course, if you take, for instance, learning journeys where you want your participants to go through different stages of self-learning exercises, you can have them fill out little questionnaires at the end of every exercise, and then they can gain points and badges and so on, and thereby giving them a direct feedback and creating something like a bit of a competition maybe in that sense, who was quickest. And you may remember, Sven, a couple of months ago, we designed a great training where we were actually working for 2 days with 40 people in a room, and you did sort of the preparatory hybrid design of the learning world, and we did the exercise in the classroom. And what we did there was that we had teams developing marketing ideas and to come up with pitch ideas, and then pitch the ideas to the audience.
Oh yeah.
And we gamified this by having like battles that you would find on, like Voice of Germany or other sort of formats. So these two groups were battling, and then there's always a winner team and a loser team, and the loser team would become part of the audience, voting on the success of the next team, etc. So it's quite interesting to have that gamification. So that's what I mean when we talk about the hybrids. You have your gamification, which means even in a classroom training, you can gamify and how at the end these guys got an Oscar for best pitch and so on, and make it a lot of fun. And you can do all of that online as well.
Yes, indeed. That's one of my favorite projects anyhow. Yeah, it was a perfect mixture of blended learning and to make sure it was long before Corona was even invented. And so that's pretty much experience we brought in. Yeah, it's very good. And indeed, it was a mixture of things which they had to do at home and some presence trainings, giving them the opportunity to build up networks and so
Yeah,
forth.
yeah.
One of the things we already experienced, for example, in that circumstances was the difficulty of the, yeah, how can you call this, of the commitment to a certain thing, what we say, the attention span. I
Mhm.
always say keeping people always working on these stuff. It is possible, of course, in the classroom because you see if somebody falls asleep, and then you can start with a little gymnastic exercise
Zumba.
or Zumba. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so a little kung fu
Yeah.
exercising. Yeah, it makes sense, of course, a lot, and it's, by the way, very healthy. We talked about safety and healthy. But how can you do that in a kind of distance learning situation?
Hmm. Well, in the distance, that's a really tricky point. If you have an interaction with with your audience, be it in a facility-led interaction, virtual training. Now, if you take that, for example, um, I like to think very much like a school teacher. You know, in school, there's a rule of thumb that you say about the approximate age of your pupils, that is the attention span they have in minutes. So a 10-year-old can focus like 10 minutes on a particular subject matter, and then you need to change the mode, then you need to do something else. And a 15-year-old could do something, and a 15-year-old can do that in 15 minutes long. Now, this doesn't scale up to 45 or anything like that.
Oh, I
So
thought
let's just so my rule of thumb is roughly every 15 to maximum 20 minutes in a webinar or something like that, you need to change the tack. You need to find a different form of exercise, either then move into breakout groups, give them some feedback, interactive opportunity, or just move from one room to another. Change the speaker already could be one way of doing it. So you see that I believe that's sort of the rhythm. The maximum duration you can do is like 15, 20 minutes on one topic. Then the mode somehow needs to change, which if you then go into the self-learning element, um, the
Mm.
self-learning is even more challenging. And the reason behind that is we don't have any sort of, yeah, when we're together, like we are online now, Sven, I couldn't just I couldn't just stand up and walk away because there's a human decency which makes me stay on. I wouldn't just walk away. But if we are, say, picking up a YouTube video or something like that, uh,
Easy.
easy. You just boring, click next video. Okay. So if we provide people with learning material, we are actually competing with content which is produced on a highly qualitative level, um, anywhere around. So basically, if you're providing little snippets and clips of information, these need to be on an extremely high technical quality level and didactic level, etc. Because otherwise, people will just switch it off. So, and for that, I believe. Uh, Maybe that's me. Maybe I don't find topics of economy or something so compelling that I would stick to. But
It's the
but like,
most exciting stuff. Yeah.
yes, of course, Mr. Professor. Of course, Professor. It's exactly. But it's like after 10 minutes, you would have me tune off. So it would actually have to be rocket science to keep me and produce like rocket science to keep me stuck to a learning nugget. And there's one more thing which I think we tend to underestimate as well. Most of this learning, and I know that lots of senior managers don't like to hear it because it gets them into trouble with the work council. But let's face it, a lot of this nugget learning, this snippet learning of little units, that is being done outside the workspace. And the reason why that is done is because our mode when I'm at work, my mode at work is a different one than my mode for taking in information. And, you know, to tune out, watch a video for 10 minutes and then go back to my busy day, that doesn't resonate. So I would probably do it in the evening on the couch. Now, if I'm on the couch in the evening, you are in competition with television, family, and all the other allurements of evening life.
Oh, don't you forget the cat videos.
Absolutely, my cat videos, my favorite cat videos. So in that sense, when you're in that competition, it needs to be very quick, it needs to be compelling, and it needs to be short, because otherwise I'll fall asleep because my attention span will be relatively reduced in the evening.
That's your way to engage the people, even if you only have them indirectly through monitors. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, indeed. It's a pretty challenging job we have to fulfill. Yeah, you're just talking about people doing this learning stuff on the couch, of course. This is good news for controllers, isn't it? Because they anyhow don't like travel expenses, and now they can skip the seminars and save money. Do you think they will cut the budgets by 50 or more 60%?
Well, I think that's exactly one of the big mistakes that can be made just now, because as I said, the number of trainings will be going up, or the number of learning, the requirements for learning will be going up. So there needs to be more spending on it. But the question is, what are actually the costs? And to be quite honest, to put you and me into a room is not cheap. I wouldn't say that, but it's extremely versatile and very flexible. And at the end of the day, you know, with the experience that we've gathered over the years of delivering training, if something comes up from the audience, you could pick them up like that, and you go into that conversation, and then you can provide something meaningful and stimulating for the people. Whereas if you do something online, or even if you provide a clip or a movie, everything needs to be up to a T. Everything needs to be scripted and very tightly choreographed, which means your effort into designing a training which you deliver online, or a training that you deliver without a facilitator, the quality of the preparation and the cost of preparation for these things will increase dramatically. So just to give you a rough number, at the moment we're calculating, maybe this is because we're not scaled up so fast yet, but at the moment we're basically calculating for every hour of video programming in the virtual training, we're calculating 1 day, which means 8 hours of conceptualization. Okay. This quota will probably reduce by repeating and repeating, being more familiar with the tools and being quicker with a couple of basic processes. But at the end of the day, 1 hour, maybe 6 hours of preparation. In the past, it used to be, you know, for a 1 day workshop, you'd maybe have half a day, and a 1 day workshop would be 8 hours. So it's not 8 days of preparation. Yeah, you see what I'm getting at. So at the end of the day, we're just shifting budgets a little bit, and then you realize that a hotel room is so much cheaper than a day of consultancy or of conceptualization. So, and as a consequence, if the controllers keep their role and keep the spirit up, it means they will not buy customized stuff, but they will buy standard off the shelf. And the more you do off the shelf, the more you have the gaps, and the more your differentiation through intelligence and training will move away. So being willing to invest into that, that's going to be the competitive edge. Companies willing to invest still into customized and maybe even face-to-face training, there will be a competitive edge, I'm sure.
I guess so, yeah. No, that sounds very, very convincing, and it's a good idea. Yeah. Chiara, are there any questions from our audience? Doesn't seem to be so. Yeah, because
We
our
don't.
audience should know that
Hi.
we are working in three federal states of Germany. It's Niedersachsen, North Rhine-Westphalia, and Mallorca. So
The last one, of course, being the biggest addition to the jewel in the crown, so to speak.
it's what we love, but however, we was okay. So up to now, no questions from the audience. Fine, this is then I would like to pick up the storyline we had before. You said, okay, the controllers will not save that much money, but maybe in future we can save some money for the trainers of soccer games, soccer teams. Is it?
Well, I think it's nice that you bring this up because, of course, today, and one of the reasons why my voice is still a little bit hoarse is because I've been singing "Never Walk Alone" all night. Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp. And Jurgen Klopp, to me, he is such an inspiration. And the reason why I mention that is, if you think about what makes a great football player, and what makes a great football coach or trainer, the football player gathers by picking up YouTube videos. We can learn how to do certain things and use certain methods. But at the end of the day, when it's all about inspiring people to make the best use of these skills and to combine these skills and maybe even produce something jointly as a team, you need something motivational around this, something to inspire you. And so I couldn't imagine Jurgen Klopp going, well, you can go on this learning journey, guys. Van Dijk, there is a great video on YouTube about defending. Okay. And we've got some fantastic video analysis of our upcoming competitors. Take a look at that, and you can gamify this at the end, find a badge, and I will see if you've done your test multiple choice. And yes, I'll be watching you of a video later on. I don't think that's going to happen. So.
No, it doesn't really. No, I don't think so as well. Yeah, Mrs. Dunn, and hopefully, I thought you were a Manchester United fan as you lived long in UK.
No, well, that's exactly what I'm not. Yeah, no, it's. I'm a great fan of Jurgen. I have to be honest. I'm a great fan of Jurgen Klopp. I've always been positive about Liverpool. Coming from the Cologne area and being from Mac, of course, I'm a big fan of the first FC Köln.
Oh, oh, that's
Yeah.
bad news for me since I'm a Werder Bremen fan. Yeah, okay, but we will see that. Okay, fine. We are now coming to the near end, and we have a little tradition. When we have some guests from outside, we like to offer them 1 minute where they can tell the public whatever they want. For example, about what the future plans are or how they work and stuff. And maybe you have even prepared some presentation.
Uh, well, I haven't prepared a presentation just now, and I think if there's one thing which I'd like to share with you, what makes us special and why do people go to Mac? There's a wonderful, and I read this story because one of our employees left us after 5 years yesterday. She was a working student and she's now picking up a job in a different field, and she said on her first day of work when she came to us, our boss, um, he asked her to buy a pair of magenta colored shoelaces because he had a customer appointment coming up. And it says a couple of things. And she said, well, from that moment, it was clear this was going to be a different sort of consulting company. It says something about the fun that we like to put into our projects. It's fun and human interaction and friendliness. We have great relationships with our clients, and the reason why I find that so important is because in many ways, when we do trainings and when we develop people, it's a complex business, and we need to try out things, and we need to be open if things work well or if they don't work well. And we need to have a trusty relationship with our clients to find out which is a good way to move forward. And having said that, this is what we do well. We build very strong relationships with our customers. and that's the foundation for any sort of transformation you want to do. Besides that, we have had over 20 years of experience now, and a fabulous mix of young people who've now just recently joined us, who are, truly digital natives, and who've grown up with these things in their cods, and then you have senior people, maybe like myself, who've had management careers spanning 25, 30 years, and this experience, the combination of that, also makes it very attractive for our customers. As I said, we're not specialists in a particular field. Maybe we're specialists in people. We just love working with people, and we'd like to bring out the quality in people. And maybe this is why I like Jürgen Klopp, bringing out the best in people. It's not always the same, but it's helping people bring out their best potential. That's probably what we're all about. That's, I think, in a nutshell, what we do at Mac.
Well, I think that's a great conclusion as well. Yeah, and if you think we talked about personal networks, building up, changing, transformation stuff, so we should all follow the club way and mix the theoretical learning, maybe even from how do you call this concept? BOOK, the old books, and then getting some nuggets from wherever we want. But the main thing is personal interaction, building up networks, using networks, and motivating people by people. Yeah, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Sven, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show today. And my regards go out to Mallorca and the technical team there. Thank you very much indeed. You've done a great job. And, well, I hope to meet you in person again soon.
I'm looking very much forward to do so. Yeah.
Okay.
When we celebrate Liverpool's big victory, yes?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Next Friday, we will see us again, and see you. Have a good weekend, and don't forget to keep in touch with your networks in person. Thank you.
Bye.
Wir beschäftigen uns im Wesentlichen mit Organisationsentwicklung. Dies bezieht sich sowohl auf, was wir die harte Seite der Organisationsentwicklung bezeichnen, das sind Prozessverbesserungen, Projektmanagementansätze, wie auch die weiche Seite der Organisationsentwicklung. Das beinhaltet große Themen wie Verhalten der Mitarbeiter, aber auch die Einstellung, die Grundeinstellung, die Menschen an den Tag legen.
Immer dann, wenn unsere Kunden in ihren Organisationen etwas verändern wollen, dann sind sie bei uns an der richtigen Adresse. In all den Veränderungsprojekten, die wir begleiten, steht die Weiterentwicklung des Menschen im Mittelpunkt. Und genau das ist unser Fokus.
Wir alle haben die tiefe Überzeugung, dass die Organisationen sich nur ändern, wenn die Menschen sich ändern.
Wir helfen Organisationen, Unternehmen auf ein Ziel hin zu entwickeln und dabei den Einzelnen und das Team mitzunehmen, denn das Einzige, was zählt bei einer Strategie, ist die Umsetzung. Es ist vielfach zwingend notwendig, neue Fähigkeiten, neue Skills zu lernen, damit verbunden konsequenter Kulturwandel, neue, erfolgskritische Fähigkeiten sich anzueignen.
Die Art und Weise unseres Arbeitens ist sehr, sehr geprägt von einer strukturell-analytischen Arbeitsweise kombiniert mit einer emotionalen Arbeitsweise.
Unsere Mission heißt Inspiring Change und dazu gehört, mit Führungskräften zusammenzuarbeiten, mit Teams, Einzelpersonen und mit ganzen Organisationen und Transformationen zu begleiten auf die emotionale Art und Weise.
Wir sind schnell in der Umsetzung, bieten einfache Lösungen und sind mit sehr viel Spaß bei der Arbeit. Und das gefällt unseren Kunden an uns.
Bei uns im Team zählen nicht nur Wissen und Erfahrung, bei uns im Team zählen Engagement, Initiative und eine unbändige Lust an der Inspiration.
Alltagsrelevanz, Businessbezug und Umsetzungsorientierung. Das sind die 3 Stichworte, die uns treiben, wenn wir Projekte konzipieren. Für uns ist wichtig, dass die Teilnehmer am Ende des Tages rausgehen und genau wissen, was mache ich jetzt konkret anders.
Ja, wir begleiten unsere Kunden in 60 Ländern, 40 Sprachen und sind so eine weltweite Beratungs- und Trainingsagentur.
Ich glaube, es sind 2 Sachen, die uns anders machen und unterscheiden von anderen. Das eine ist, dass unser Anspruch ist, mit einem ganz hohen Business-Fokus reinzugehen und das Geschäft von Kunden wirklich zu verstehen. Und das zweite ist, die emotionale Seite von Veränderungen und Transformationen anzusprechen und wirklich Business und Emotionen zu verbinden, weil die emotionale Seite die ist, die unser Arbeitsfokus ist und die auch Transformation erfolgreich macht.
In everything that they do, they pour their heart into it. It's not just a job. It's not somewhere that they show up from 9 to 5 and get what needs to get done. It's really more. It's about helping people. It's about belonging to a team. It's about collaboration.
Was ist das Ziel am Ende? Das Ziel ist, das Beste aus Menschen herauszuholen, das Beste zu entwickeln, was Menschen mitbringen in Organisationen. Und warum das? Um Organisationen schnell, effizient und vor allem kundenorientiert zu machen. Das ist unsere Aufgabe, das machen wir mit Freude, jeden Tag mit allen Mitarbeitern bei der MACC.